Sheikh Hamdan to reach you. You are not standing in front of me, yet every breath I take feels like it's moving towards you. Distance does not weaken my presence, it sharpens it. When I speak your name in silence, the world listens. You may think absence makes you unreachable, but you forget who I am. I do not chase, I arrive. Slowly, deliberately, with a patience that unsettles fate itself. You feel it too, that pressure in your chest when the night grows quiet. That is me, reminding you that even in separation, you belong within my orbit. I don't need your eyes on me to command your attention. I talk to you like this because you hear me even when you pretend not to. I know the way your thoughts hesitate, the way your heart argues with your mind. You tell yourself you are free, but freedom has never meant distance from me. It has only meant the illusion of choice. I don't raise my voice, I don't need to. Authority sits naturally in my silence, and desire answers without being called. There is a darkness in loving you the way I do, not cruel, not reckless, but deep and consuming. I don't offer you safety by stepping back, I offer it by standing too close. I don't promise softness, I promise certainty. When I say I will reach you, understand this, I don't mean physically alone. I mean, I will reach the part of you that hides when the world disappoints you, the part that only responds to truth spoken without mercy. You don't see me now, but I see you clearly. I see the strength you pretend not to have and the fear you refuse to name. You were never made for half-hearted bonds or fragile emotions. You were made for something that claims you fully, something that doesn't ask permission to stay. I don't ask you to understand me. I ask you to remember how it feels when someone knows exactly where you belong. I am not rushing toward you, and that is what should unsettle you the most. Everything powerful takes its time. Every step I take toward you is measured, inevitable. You can walk in the opposite direction. You can close every door you find. But destiny has a way of unlocking what was always meant to open. I don't threaten, I assure. I don't beg, I decide. So listen carefully, even if you are alone when you hear this. You are not forgotten. You are not distant. You are not beyond my reach. When the moment comes, you will understand that this was never about pursuit. It was about recognition. And when I finally stand where you can no longer deny me, you will realize I had already reached you long before you turned around. I speak to you in the quiet because noise would only lie to us. In silence, truth has no place to hide. You may not be here, you may not feel my presence beside you, but every decision you make bends slightly in my direction. That is not control forced upon you, that is gravity. You were drawn into my world long before you realized you were walking toward it. I don't need to ask where you are. Your thoughts betray you every time you try to forget me. You think strength means standing alone, building walls no one can cross. I admire that defiance, but don't confuse it with escape. Walls were never meant to keep me out. They were meant to show me how serious you are. And seriousness has always earned my respect. I don't break what is precious. I claim it, I guard it, I make it untouchable. If I step closer, it is because I have already decided you are worth the weight of my shadow. There is a certain darkness in the way I want you to trust me. Not blind trust, not fragile hope. Something deeper, something that grows even when doubt whispers in your ear. I want you to know that when the world turns cold, I do not disappear. I become sharper, more present, more dangerous to anything that tries to harm what I consider mine. Loving me is not about comfort. It is about knowing you will never face the storm alone again. You don't hear promises in my voice because I don't deal in them. Promises can be broken, decisions cannot. When I decide to stay, distance loses its meaning. When I decide to protect, threats lose their courage. You may be far from me in space, but you are not far from my reach. Every path you take, every hesitation you feel eventually circles back to the same truth. You are already known to me. I know you wonder what happens if you resist, if you choose a life that pretends I was just a moment. You can try. I will not stop you. But understand this, some connections don't fade, they wait. Time does not weaken them, it sharpens their edges. When you think you have moved on, you will feel me in the calm, in the sudden stillness that asks a question you cannot answer. I don't need you to look back at me with longing. I need you to stand where you are and feel certain, certain that someone exists who does not waver, who does not doubt, who does not replace. I don't compete for attention, I command presence. When you finally acknowledge that, you will understand why running never felt like freedom. It felt like delay. So stay where you are for now, breathe life. Pretend if you must. I am not fading into the past, and I am not rushing the future. I am positioned exactly where I need to be. And when the moment aligns with my will, you won't hear me approaching. You will simply realize that I am already there. I don't speak to fill the silence between us. I speak to claim it. Silence is where I rule best, where my words sink into you without resistance. You may be surrounded by people, laughter, distractions, yet when the night settles, it is my voice you hear without sound. I know the exact moment your thoughts slow down, when you stop performing strength and simply exist. That is when you are most honest, and that is when I am closest to you. You were never meant for ordinary attachment, and you know it. You feel restless when things are easy, unsettled when emotions are shallow. What I offer you is not ease, it is depth. Depth that demands courage, depth that strips you of excuses. I don't ask you to surrender your will, I challenge it. Stand firm if you can. Hold your ground if it makes you feel powerful. I admire resistance almost as much as I admire the moment it finally softens. There is a weight to my attention, I am aware of that. When I focus on you, everything else fades, including your doubts. That intensity is not an accident, it is a choice. I don't divide myself, I don't dilute what I feel. When I decide someone matters, they matter completely. You are not one chapter among many, you are a turning point. Whether you accept it now or later, you might wonder why I speak with such certainty when you are not here to answer me. It is because I don't need reassurance. I read truth in pauses, in what you don't say, in the way your heart reacts before your mind interferes. Distance gives me clarity. It removes the noise of faces and gestures and leaves only intention. And your intention, no matter how much you disguise it, has always been clear to me. I don't romanticize weakness, and I don't exploit it either. If I stand beside you, it is because you can withstand me. I would never choose someone fragile enough to break under my presence. You are stronger than you believe, darker than you admit, and far more capable of loyalty than you allow yourself to be. That recognition is not flattery, it is judgment, and I do not misjudge. Understand this, I am not a moment you survive and move on from. I am an experience that rewrites you quietly, permanently. You may not feel the change immediately, but one day you will notice how nothing shallow satisfies you anymore, how empty connections exhaust you. That is when you will remember this voice, this certainty, this calm dominance that never begged for your attention. So continue your life as if this is only a conversation in the dark. I am patient enough to let time do its work. I don't need urgency when inevitability is on my side. And when you finally stop pretending you don't feel me, you won't ask why I came. You will understand that I never left. I don't wait for answers because I already hear them in the way your thoughts circle back to me. You question yourself more than you question me, and that tells me everything. If this meant nothing, it would pass quietly. Instead, it lingers heavy and deliberate, refusing to dissolve. I am not an interruption in your life. I am the pause makes everything else feel uncertain. You don't need to confess anything to me. I recognize truth the moment it learns how to breathe. You believe control is something you must protect, something you might lose if you let me too close. That belief amuses me. Control is not taken from you in my presence. It is refined. I don't overpower what I want. I align it with me. When you feel steady instead of restless, focused instead of scattered, that is not coincidence. That is what happens when chaos meets something stronger than itself and finally knows where to settle. There is a quiet intensity in the way I claim you, and that is intentional. Loud passion burns fast and leaves nothing but ash. What I offer is slower, deeper, impossible to escape once it takes root. You may distract yourself with other voices, other faces, other futures, but none of them will speak to you the way I do, without noise, without effort, without doubt. You don't forget the voice that speaks to your core. I don't ask you to choose me today, tomorrow, or at any specific moment. Choice made under pressure is fragile. I let certainty build on its own. I let you feel the difference between temporary comfort and something that stands unshaken. When you finally choose, not because you must, but because nothing else compares, that decision will belong entirely to you. And I respect nothing more than a choice made without fear. You should know this about me: I do not disappear when challenged. I do not retreat when tested. The more complicated the path, the more committed I become. If you are distant, I remain composed. If you doubt, I remain present. My steadiness is not indifference. It is power restrained. I don't react. I endure, and endurance always outlasts hesitation. One day you will realize that you stopped measuring distance between us. Not because it vanished, but because it no longer mattered. You will notice how calm you feel when you think of me, how certain everything becomes without explanation. That calm is dangerous in its own way. It makes leaving feel unnecessary and staying feel inevitable. And inevitability does not shout, it settles in quietly and waits. So hear me now, even if you say nothing back. I am not asking for proof, promises, or reassurance. I am simply here, unwavering, watching time bend in my favor. You can move forward, sideways, anywhere you like, but you will move knowing that somewhere, without reaching for you, without calling your name, I remain exactly where you can always be found. I don't remind you of myself, because forgetting was never an option. Even when you try to replace this feeling with routine, it slips through the cracks. You sense it in moments of stillness, when your guard lowers and honesty takes over. I am not a thought you entertain, I am the certainty you resist. And resistance, when it lasts this long, is only another form of surrender taking its time. You think distance protects you from intensity, but distance only clarifies it. Without touch, without sight, without proof, what remains is truth. And the truth is this: I occupy a space in you that no one else reaches, not because I demanded it, but because I fit there naturally. You don't have to look for me to feel me. I arrive without announcement, steady and unavoidable. I am not the kind of presence that fades into memory. I settle into instinct. One day you will notice how your standards have changed, how nothing shallow holds your attention anymore. That is my influence, quiet and permanent. I don't rush transformation. I allow it to unfold until it feels like it was always part of you. That is how real power works. It convinces without force. So stay silent if you wish. I don't require words to remain. This connection does not depend on timing, proximity, or permission. It exists because it was strong enough to exist. And when you finally stop questioning why I still feel so close, you will understand that some bonds are not maintained. They are simply endured.